Aloha, this is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. I am welcoming back a friend of the show, Eric Palicki. This is his third time back on the podcast. He is here to promote his new 5-part limited series, Ninja Kaidan from Black Box Comics and Manticore. It is the opening chapter of his saga, What Rough Beasts saga, if I got that correct. Now, Ninja Kaidan issue 3 will be in shops on September 28th, and issue 4 will be out on October 26th. And also to Manticore, that will be on his website, ericpalicki.com. Eric, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
Well, first of all, aloha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well also. Jason, thanks again. I'm really happy to be here.
No, Eric, I'm going to say thank you. Just thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming back. Listeners, we are in for a treat because we're going to talk about, like I said, we're going to talk about his Eric's new 5-part series, Ninja Kaidan, and also his and Manticore that was started off as a Kickstarter last year, and it will soon be available on his website. Now, Eric, before we get into questions and everything, I just want to go over a few stuff to let, if we have new readers or new listeners to the show, I just want to, tell them what your previous works have been. And please feel free to jump in to add anything, okay? So Eric has written, of course, Atlantis wasn't built for tourists by Scout Comics. That's already out in trade paperback. Fake Empire from Darby Pop. He's also written and edited some anthology books, such as 2 volumes of Deadbeats. That's a musical horror anthology. I have both volumes. I've read through some of the short stories. They're great. Also, another anthology book that he's also edited and also written some stories for him, I should have said, is All We Ever Wanted, Stories of a Better World. And these 2 trades are available through A Wave New World. Is that correct, Eric?
It's A Wave Blue World.
Wave Blue World, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. Yes, so, and then there was also a second volume, a companion volume to All We Ever Wanted called Maybe Someday, which was a second volume of science fiction that had more of an aspirational bent. I see, your listeners won't be able to see it, but you're wearing a Star Trek t-shirt. Yes. And we were, my co-editor, Matt Miner, and I, the idea for All We Ever Wanted and then Maybe Someday was that we had kind of looked at the science fiction that was popular at the time that we started putting this anthology together, and everything was, we were sort of going back towards dystopianism with the I Am Legend movie with Will Smith and the new Mad Max, and we wanted to kind of lean back into that. What if the future is not awful kind of science fiction? So that's where those projects were born. And Matt always said that All We Ever Wanted and Maybe Someday were more Star Trek, less Mad Max, that kind of science fiction.
Okay. And then also to listeners, one last book that he and his sister Adrienne worked on is No Angels, and that's from, correct me if I'm, Black Mask Studios, is that correct?
Yeah, Black Mask Studios, yes.
Okay. All right, now Eric, did I miss anything, or do you want to add anything else to your list that readers should know?
Did we talk about Blacksmith from Ahoy Comics?
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. That's right.
That's all right. That was my other, that was a 5-part miniseries from Ahoy Comics, black and white supernatural noir series with just a little humorous edge. We just finished that up at the beginning of the year, and the trade paperback is now available in stores. And it has been previously announced, but Wendell, my collaborator and artistic partner, and I will be doing a second volume of Blacksmith with Ahoy, hopefully starting at the end of the year, or maybe early in 2023.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm going to be looking forward to that. Thank you for letting me know about that. And yeah, I'm sorry about that. I forgot all about that. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, okay, now, before we start getting to questions, start jumping into his books, I want to talk about basically, so listeners, again, Manticore was a Kickstarter that I backed last year, and I want to thank Eric for his generosity. I mean, he sent me the Manticore because he sent me the Manticore book, and along with some of his trades, and I can't wait to read No Angel. And also, he also sent me some goodies from Seattle. So, Eric, thank you very much. Thank you very much for for that incredible gift box. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And, thank you for your generosity in general and having me on the show. It was the least I could do was to send you some of my work, as well as some, some treats from the Seattle area where I live.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And then also to and listeners, I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Eric again. He gave me review copies of the first 2 issues of Ninja Kaidan. Yeah, we'll talk more about that series in just a moment. Yeah, so, and I'm gonna just encourage you listeners, since Ninja Kaidan is from Black Box Comics, if your LCS does not carry that, please tell your stores to please order, this limited series. It's very good. And like I said, in a few moments, me and Eric will get into that. So Eric, again, thank you for those review copies. It's, like I said, it's very good. I love it. It's great. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then now regarding the Ninja Kaidan series, I did get some information from Comic Book Resources. The article is titled "Eric Palicki discusses the ghostly actions of Black Box Comics Ninja Kaidan." Now that article was dated May 31st of this year, and it was by, I'm going to try to pronounce the writer's name, Sergio Pereira. I believe that's correct. So if you guys get a chance after this interview, listen to this interview, go check out that article as well. It was really good. Now, Eric, let's get the start. We're going to jump in. First off, where can listeners follow you on social media?
Sure. I am active on Twitter and Instagram at Eric Palicki. And then I also have a website at ericpalicki.com where I do maintain a web store, and you can buy some of my older works as they become available. Just because of the logistics of shipping, I generally only have trades available on my website, but if you contact me directly, I can put you in touch with either my publishers, or I do have some back issues if you need individual issues of No Angel or Ninja Kaidan or Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists.
Okay. All right. And then, all right. So I'm going to start off with Ninja Kaidan. Eric, I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this is a sleeper hit that comic fans should be reading. They really should be. And I'm going to get into more details because Eric, you've seen my notes and everything, so I'll go into more details about that. But I'm going to start off with, for the listeners, can you just, what is the series about?
Sure. The elevator pitch. If you walk up to my table and see the covers, which the art on the books is phenomenal, of course, and we'll get into Lucas's contribution to the book in a moment. But if you walk up to my table at a convention and you ask me what it's about, I'm going to tell you this is a book about ninjas versus ghosts, because that 3-word sentence will sell the book 80% of the time. Because on the surface level, that is what this book is about. It's ninjas fighting ghosts for 5 issues. Fight comics, just frenetic action all the way throughout. That said, if anyone who's familiar with my work knows that I do need to have some sort of character development to kind of anchor my stories. And this is a story about a son who inherits his father's company, and along with it, a few of his father's pet projects, including the Kaidan armor, which is a suit that allows you to see and interact with ghosts. The mystery of why his father was working on this project and what its ultimate purpose is kind of forms the backbone of the story. But it does kind of allow our main character, Yuki Snow, to sort of resolve some issues with his father and come to terms with where he came from and his own history, and his father, who may or may not have been the best guy in general, and father specifically. And so I don't want to give too much away to your listeners as far as that central mystery goes, but there is definitely a very human element to this story that revolves around ninjas literally punching ghosts for at least one entire issue. So
that's so cool. Okay, now how'd you come up with this awesome idea?
So this project has a very interesting origin in that I worked with, I was actually approached by Black Box with kind of a rough outline of an idea, a vague idea of what the publisher wanted to do. And he wanted to have an action-centric book with a martial arts hero at the center. His big touchstone was the recent movie Ninja Assassin, which I don't know if you've seen Ninja Assassin, but the interesting thing about Ninja Assassin is that the screenplay is written by J. Michael Straczynski of Babylon 5 and Oscar nominated for The Changeling, and he was kind of slumming it, and he did this action movie about ninjas in the real world, and the publisher really loved this movie and wanted something that kind of maintained a similar tone and tenor to that movie. And I've been reading comics since the late 80s, early 90s, when Wolverine and Daredevil were fighting ninjas every week.
Yeah.
So I know that a book about ninjas is hardly has a unique hook to it. So I said, what if he was a ninja and he fought ghosts? What if there was this supernatural element to it? But then to take that another step further, what if we took that supernatural element and flipped the switch and made it a science fictional element? Yes. Which so we kind of came up with a sort of science fictional or scientific explanation for what ghosts are, why they exist, how you might be able to see them, and then subsequently how you might be able to interact and even stop them or eliminate them some way. So we kind of folded all of that into the book and gave our main character Yuki a reason for his pursuit of these ghosts and for his pursuit of the central mystery, and we were off to the race, and we were off to the races.
Because you mentioned about the science, kind of like a science fiction aspect to this, because now one of the characters, I'm sorry, Eric, I'm kind of sort of a little going off the cuff, sort of.
Sure.
Because one of the characters is Mary Beth Sands, and in the first issue, I love it where Mary Beth is kind of like, she doesn't believe in ghosts, and kind of she doesn't sort of like believe in the, like she quote unquote said, like new agey pseudoscience. But I love how you came up with her explaining about, like quote unquote, our being is full of energy and that energy doesn't go away. I love, because it felt real. It didn't sound like, and I'm not making fun of Ghostbusters, but it doesn't sound like, how Ghostbusters, well, it's plasma energy, it's something abstract and you kind of go with it. But she sounds like it's almost like she tries to make it sound very plausible. So I'm just asking, did you do any research into that part, or did you just made it up?
I won't say I made it up. It was kind of just a creative extension of concepts that I had heard in the past to sort of fill your readers in. Mary Beth is not skeptical about the existence of, or your listeners rather, is not skeptical about the existence of ghosts, but she's skeptical about their consciousness. In her mind,
Yes.
ghosts and the existence of ghosts is just an extension of the law of conservation of energy, that your body is full of electrical signals, and just because your physical body dies doesn't mean that energy immediately goes away. So in her definition, a ghost is just that electromagnetic signature that sticks around for a while after your physical body expires. And from there, extrapolating from there, she comes up with, and I know I'm kind of getting ahead of your questions, and I apologize.
That's fine.
From there, she extrapolates a way that if that energy is there, it must be something that we can visibly see and measure. And in her mind, she discovers that the key to figuring it out is cats. And she watches her cat stare at a blank wall, which anyone who's got a cat knows that cats just will fixate on nothing in particular for any amount of time. And so she, from there, reverse engineers a cat's eye and is able to see that electromagnetic wavelength. And that's kind of the science fictional basis for her ability to see ghosts. What she doesn't immediately understand is that, contrary to her theories, these ghosts still do have consciousness, and they are still thinking and existing, and that causes the issues for Yuki and for our other characters moving forward, including poor Mary Beth. And I know this is sounding a lot inside baseball, and people should really just read the book, because hopefully the characters, as they're in the middle of punching each other, can deliver this information much more interestingly than I can in a podcast. But it's all there. But I feel like the scientific basis and the science fictional basis doesn't weigh the story down. It just gives me a point of reference and allows things to sort of move forward, move the story forward, and gives people a reason to keep going.
Yes. And the thing is like, it's and I love it, because it's kind of like, because I think it's like almost like it's basically, she explains it just in the first issue. That's like, maybe it's like no more than a page, but well, like I said, I love it because it just made sense. It really did. And I love it how you said, owner of cats, if you have a cat, you could, the cat, and there's 2 panels where she's like, she talks to Yuki about, she remembers seeing her cat, and it shows her cat. She comes into the room and her cat's like looking up at nothing, or a wall. Now I'm going to ask you, and please feel free to talk about your cat, Jerry. Did Jerry do this?
Oh, Jerry does this. Jerry does this all the time. He'll stare at an empty space in the corner of the apartment and mew and cry, and we can't figure it out. I assume we've got a ghost, no big deal.
Oh,
yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because Jerry is still with us, but we lost another cat at the very beginning of the pandemic. So Manticore a little bit more so than Ninja Kaidan, but they're both kind of love letters to the cats in our lives, and there is that element. And issue 3, issue 3 and 4, actually issue 4 also has kind of pays off on the revelation that this is all based on how cats see the world. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you're a cat lover, and I promise no cats are harmed during this story, you will want to check out issue 4.
Eric, I'm sorry about the loss of your cat in the pandemic. I'm sorry about that. off the cuff question. The cat
Sure.
that's in issue 1, is that Jerry or is that?
That's not Jerry. That was I think that might be Lucas's cat.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to say that's a perfect segue. So, how did you team up with this amazing artist, Lucas Meyer? Is that correct? His last name?
Yes. Yeah. And I should clarify. Lucas was brought in by the publisher, Black Box. Demetrios, the publisher and editor, brought Lucas to me and said, "This is the guy I want doing this book." And Lucas is a phenomenal artist, and he's also. I'm very excited to say, if anyone picked up, I believe it's called Titans United.
Yes.
Bloodsport last week.
Yes.
That is actually Lucas's DC Big 2 debut. He's now illustrating comics for DC, and that's phenomenal. It's well earned. His skills. It was only a matter of time, even when we were working together. He did complete all 5 issues of the first arc of Ninja Kaidan, but he's now got a DC gig, and I'm very excited for him. It's well earned.
And for listeners, and I'm going to say, Eric, and you can correct me at any time, but listeners, what Eric is saying is that Lucas is an amazing artist. I mean, to me, Lucas has this nice combination of it. Kind of some of the styles remind me a little bit of Mike Perkins, Gabriel Hardman, and Greg Lance. Like I said, just correct me if I'm wrong on that. And there's a scene I think in issue number 2 that I really love, that where Lucas has basically, the setup is Yuki's in front of his I want to say like one of his father's secret lairs. There's a keypad there, and I love it how Yuki, Lucas draws Yuki where he's trying to figure out his dad's code. And what's so cool about it is that Lucas gives that look up, and instead of just doing that look up of, okay, I'm trying to think what my dad's code is, Lucas adds a little action of him putting his fingers on the chin, going, I wonder what it is. That was very good. I love it. Now I'm going to ask, do you want to give a shout out to the rest of the creative team on Ninja Kaidan?
Yeah, I mean, the whole team just has done a fantastic job. Lucas on Lucas is obviously the star of the show, and I am absolutely in awe of the work he's done. But the rest of the team has done a phenomenal job with the whole team. Desi on letters,
Yes.
Michael did the colors, and then Demetrios was obviously the editor, and he's also the brainchild behind the Black Box. So I think the overall quality of books that Black Box Comics is producing right now is incredible. I think as soon as the production can ramp up and they can start putting out more than one book a month, it's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the industry.
Okay, all right. And then I'm going to ask you, because on the first issue of variant cover, how did they get legendary Ron Friends to do a cover for your first issue?
Demetrios met Ron at a convention, and he asked, and it is as a person who grew up reading comics in the 80s and 90s, reading Thor and Thunderstrike and Spider-Girl, and this is a guy who has been a presence in comics for me for most of the time I read comics, and it's a phenomenal like I was astounded when he told me he was able to get a Ron Friends variant for this book, and it definitely is checks off a bucket list item for me. And then, you know, he also was able to get Sean Chen for an issue 2 variant. So that's another artist that I've been reading since the 90s and been in love with the whole time. So just really exciting and really cool to have these variants and these people who were such a presence in comics when I was reading them, being able to do work with us.
That's great. Okay. For Ninja Kaidan, a couple more questions before we move on to Manticore. How did you guys come up? How did you and Lucas come up with the design of the suits? Or
so
actually, there's okay, sorry.
No, you're totally great question. The suits were sort of the original suit was mostly Lucas with some input from myself and Demetrios. We wanted something that was a suit of armor, but that wasn't that was more functional. It's not meant to be an Iron Man style exoskeleton. It is something that you would wear to protect yourself. So we looked at, you know, historical ninja armors, samurai armor, and started there. And then, you know, added some embellishments to give it a little splash of color.
Yes.
And, you know, it's more about functionality than about, you know, like I said, like an Iron Man style suit. But it's also got to carry some technology in it. And, you know, we sort of did use that heads up display concept to kind of give a, because this is a suit that is allowing Yuki to see things that the naked eye couldn't see. So we did have to sort of use a little bit of that technological idea when it came to the helmet specifically.
So, but I love those scenes where it's like he can see the readouts, or he can see, you know, what the ghosts that are in front of him. I love that. The other thing I love about the suits is that it's and it looks like, you know, it looks a little not used, but it doesn't look shiny. It's like, I think the first suit that we see in issue 1, the opening page, it looks like there's a little scuff mark. It looks like a little scuff marks, like it's gone through some test runs and stuff. And that's what I love about it. Just doesn't look shiny. Like you said, it looks very functional. Yeah, that, you know, like I said, it looks great.
Yeah, the first suit we see from page 1, we see Yuki in the prototype armor. And what I did for that is I gave Lucas a bunch of images of prototype aircraft. So if you see the first stealth fighter, the one that we know of and see is black, and it's, you know, it's sleek and it's shiny and it's ready for combat. But if you look at the history of that airplane and you look at the first prototypes, they're not this, you know, the sleek black, you know, Raven profile that we've come to know. They're just made out of whatever materials available. They're going to have different colors. They're going to have engineering notes written right on the plane. You're going to be able to see measurements and things. So I kind of wanted to have that feel of a prototype armor that's not finished. It's not polished. It's not as sleek as the eventual version is going to be. And then by the end of issue 1, we see that his father has actually created a fully finished suit that Yuki is able to discover and puts on, and that's where the final design that you see on the covers comes from.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. One last question about Ninja Kaidan before I move on to Manticore. After, I know this is a 5-issue limited series. Will we see Yuki or any of the some of the characters in any future stories? You know, like, do you have more stories?
I don't know what I'm allowed to say here. But I guess it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that as soon as I get off this podcast with you, I'm going to continue writing issue 8 of Ninja Kaidan. So we are moving forward with a second arc of this book. So we'll have the first 5,
yes,
which will complete one story that we started with issue 1, and that will and then we'll have a new artist moving in, and who will work with me on issues 6 through 10.
Okay. Oh, thank
so
you.
And it's kind of early. I guess that's the first announcement now that we are doing a volume 2. I do not know if we're going to continue the numbering sequence and do 6 through 10, or if it'll be volume 2, 1 through 5. But there is more coming. So for those of you that are reading and faithful readers, the story is far from over.
Okay, all right. Eric, thank you very much for telling me about this. Thank you and letting our listeners know too. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to move to Manticore. Now, for our listeners, what is Manticore about?
Sure. Manticore is the story of Sheila Cross, a directionless 20-something living in Seattle, who discovers one day that she has inherited her grandmother's pet monster. Now, poor Sheila didn't know that monsters existed. Never mind that grandma had one as a pet. So this kind of throws her into a broader sort of supernatural mystery and a whole world of magic and myth that she had no idea existed. And she must subsequently come to terms with the mystery of how did grandma die, but also how did grandma live?
Yeah.
So that's the story of Sheila Cross and Manticore.
Okay. And then let's see. And like I have to ask, I'll probably start picking on some, but actually I love Sheila's roommate Marla. I really do, because Marla like literally kind of doesn't have filters. And I love it how I think how I guess she ordered drinks, like bottles of wine through one of those delivery services, and it's great because I love it how you could tell a little bit about Sheila by going, Marla pops open the bottle, she starts drinking, Sheila's kind of going, shouldn't we get a glass? Glasses, I just love that.
I love Marla. I love writing Marla a lot more than I expected. So much so that some bad things happened to Marla in the course of this story. And I had a couple of my beta readers walked over to me with the book open in hand on the page where Marla first gets into some trouble and says, "You can't do this to me. This is my favorite character." So there's more of Marla to come if we are in fact able to continue the story. And I know that we'll get into sequels to Manticore in a later in the discussion, but there's more Marla to come because I just love writing her too much to say goodbye to her just yet.
Okay, all right, okay. Let's see, and then the now I and help me on this now correct me if I'm wrong too. The Manticore now definition is it's like a mythical beast that's supposed to have a lion's body with a human head. So Manticore, is that the lion in the book? Is that correct?
So yes, and I know that the Manticore as designed is not what people expect a Manticore to look like. And that's another question that gets answered in a later chapter of the book.
Okay.
But just for purposes of being a mythical monster, a monster that, a giant lion that's cinnamon colored and can talk is, I think, enough of us to understand that it is not just a normal normal monster.
Mm-hmm. But let's see. So let's see. I'm gonna. So as I mentioned in the introduction, Eric, is that um that this is the Manticore is the opening chapter of your What Rough Beast saga is. Can I ask you? May I ask, like what is the saga? What how did you come up with this saga? What inspired you to do this?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack with this question. So please bear with me, listeners too. And again, I hope I'm not too inside baseball and I'm not ruining things for people who should just go read the book. But so Manticore started life as my pandemic project, right? A lot of publishers were doing a pencils down situation. I still had, at the time, I was writing Blacksmith for Ahoy because they never had a pencils down. But I wanted to keep making comics, even though opportunities to work in comics were not drying up, but a little bit harder to come by during the early days of the pandemic. So my friend Chris Peterson, himself a seasoned comic book artist, he did Grindhouse, Doors Open at Midnight for Dark Horse with Alex DeCampi, has done several books, mentioned that he was looking for something to do. So we got together, we kind of brainstormed. And what I really wanted to do was something in the sort of European comics album vein, where it's an oversized hardcover book, something that's got a little bit more permanence to it, was a self-contained story. Although I do have a little bit of a stinger at the end of this book that sort of allows people to, it does leave it open for more stories. And the other inspirations for this were that one of the things that I did a lot during the pandemic, because it was the only excuse I had to leave the house a lot of times, was I played a lot of Pokemon Go, right? So people I'm sure at this point remember Pokemon Go as this virtual reality, alternate reality game where you can take your phone out and you catch Pokemon living on the streets of wherever your city or town is. And I started to think about like the realities of keeping monsters as pets, and is that cruel and unusual, or what would that really be like? And then I had as I said, we lost a cat at the start of the pandemic, and so I wanted to do a story about a girl and her pet cat. Just because the cat is, big enough to ride and eats people on occasion doesn't necessarily mean it's not her pet cat. And then the final inspiration was I had gotten to thinking about my grandfather, who passed away 20 years ago now, I guess almost 25 years ago, and how like we were very close, but maybe it was part of that closeness was because of youth, and like what would he be like now? How would have things have been if he had lived through the Trump years, and would our changing attitudes toward the world have frayed that relationship at all? And so all of that went into a big stew, and then I got Sheila Cross, who is very close with her grandmother, only to discover that there are secrets that her grandmother is hiding from her that really changes her attitude towards that relationship. There's pet monsters like in Pokemon, there's a giant cat, and all of it came together, and I wanted it to be a book of permanence, something that you could put on your coffee table. And it's not like my first experience with comics was reading an issue of Wolverine that was written by Larry Hama and drawn by Mark Silvestri. And my friend had it on his bedroom floor, and it was just torn to pieces, right? It was definitely the sort of thing that got rolled up and stuck in somebody's back pocket before they jumped on their bike. And I wanted sort of like, I treasure that experience, and I treasure the sort of disposability of comics, I wanted to create something that was the opposite of that. I wanted an object, a thing that was really cool, looks cool on your bookshelf, looks cool on your coffee table, can sit there forever. And so I did this book as a hardcover, and it is a standalone story with a little bit of a stinger at the end that opens up the world for more stories. And so that's what I did, right? And I worked with Chris for the first time. It was, you know, phenomenal. I think he enjoyed it. I worked with DJ Chavez, who was our colorist. He did a phenomenal job. I had only worked with him on a secondhand basis. He did some coloring for a couple of the stories in those A Wave Blue World anthologies we talked about at the top of the show. But getting to work with him directly was also a joy. Matt Krotzer, our letterer, like Matt designed, like it's kind of an unconventional lettering style that he did for the book, and he created these cool word balloons for the lion that kind of are meant to, or I should say the Manticore, right? He created this lettering convention and these cool word balloons specific to the Manticore that look like a lion's mane. They have a border that's meant to kind of give you that impression. So the whole book, as I was saying before we started recording, this is maybe the first time where reality met the vision, and I had this idea for what this book would look like, and then I opened up the box when the printer sent them over. I was a little nervous, but the book is exactly what I pictured it would be, and here we are. I know that we've kind of gone far afield of the question, but there was a lot that went into this milkshake of that became Manticore, right? A lot of ingredients.
Yes. No, that's no problem. But because this is, because this is, it shows the love you have for this story, you touched upon, a number of things, the loss of your grandfather, about 25 years ago, one of your cats at the beginning of the pandemic. And then, like you said, during the pandemic, it's kind of like, in some sense, there was also a loss of, like the pencils down was kind of sort of a loss of some parts of work, the loss of almost some type of freedom where you can't really, none of us could have gone out of our houses except to the store, and that's it. But the thing is, it comes through Manticore, because Sheila, you can see in the first page how close, and it doesn't, and it's not a lot of words, but there's words, but there's images where it's conveyed clearly that she loved her grandmother. The letter is, she gets the letter says, if you're reading this, I'm, something has happened to me, and the thing is with the Manticore, even though this is some huge ferocious lion that literally can eat you, and it looks very menacing on the page, because I love Chris's artwork. It's very clean, it's very nice, but man, when you see the Manticore, it's this very threatening line on the page. But yet when he's talking to Sheila, I get this sense of, he kind of plays with her a little bit, but you could see through that somehow or another, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I get this feeling that he's going to protect her no matter what,
Yes, and Chris was very conscious of that as he drew that. That's not stuff that was in the script, and that is why comics is such a beautiful collaborative medium, is he intentionally softens, if you look page on page, he intentionally softens the appearance of the Manticore, page to page, and by the end you can see that you can see that there's definitely that softening, and that, like, yes, this is, I belong to you now, and I'm no longer your grandmother's, and
Yes.
I'm here to you. And there's this page, he just absolutely nails it. So I don't want to spoil the punchline of what's kind of a joke of the story, but after he picks his name and Sheila asks, "Are you sure about that?" There is this panel of just absolute pride that the Manticore has that it cracks me up every time. Like, "Do you like it?" And he's just with his chest puffed up and his chin held high. And I die. It's perfect. It's absolute perfect work that Chris did for that.
I'm going to start continuing on, Eric. Sorry.
No worries.
You have to refresh my memory, because I remember we did an interview for the Kickstarter last year, but refresh my memory. How many volumes were you looking to do for this saga?
So I want to do five chapters, and each chapter, now that we've sort of opened up this world of mythology and magic, each chapter would sort of focus on a different mythological beast. And while Sheila and the Manticore wouldn't disappear from the story, they wouldn't necessarily take center stage in every volume. And in fact, volume 2 will be called Phoenix, and it will actually be Marla's story, because again, I don't want to say goodbye to that character yet, but she's a part of Sheila's life, and so she's going to become a part of this mystery that Sheila now has to unravel about her grandmother and about the world that she finds herself living in.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right. I'm kind of jumping into, do you have an idea when are you planning to have Phoenix come out? Do you have an idea?
I will probably run a Kickstarter for Phoenix in 2023. Okay. So I want to have Chris involved.
Yes.
Chris is currently involved in some other some webtoon projects and some other projects right now. So I want to wait for Chris's availability.
Yes.
Or I want to find someone that he and I, since he is really a co-creator of this material, that he and I can agree on as far as our a path forward. If Chris won't be directly involved as the artist, who then would we work with?
Yes. Okay.
So,
all right. Also, now, if listeners are interested, where can they pick up a copy of Manticore?
So Manticore was a Kickstarter exclusive book, but I have plenty of copies. I will have them available. Actually, by the time this podcast is available, it will be available on my web store at ericpalicki.com. It's a nice, handsome, oversized hardcover. I'm prone to not to. I also have a number of other projects or other books available on the web store, as we were saying at the top of the show. So if anyone wants to pick up something of mine that they missed, Fake Empire or No Angel or any of the other books, they can grab them there.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, sorry, I'm kind of going off the cuff, Eric, before I start wrapping things up, but as soon as you said you wanted the Manticore book to be like in a European format, thank you very much for saying that, because when I opened your box and I was going, this format looks familiar, because I know DC did the 2 Batman books, the Dark Prince Charming, I believe, a few years ago, because they were also toying around with the European style. That was a European style book too. But because I love the design of the book, I love the size of it, and also too, and I don't know, I'm not an artist or I'm just a guy who reads comics, but reading the story, I just love the layouts. I don't know what it is. It looks very nice. But like I said, it's a great book. I love the art too. I really do.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I have been privileged with both of the books we're talking about now, but not only that, but throughout my entire career is I get to work with artists who make me look good,
Mhm.
right? Like whether it's Lucas or Chris or Wendell on Blacksmith and Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists, I have been really privileged to work with phenomenal artists,
Mhm.
and uh, I get to write a mediocre story and have them be rock stars. And I say that's self-deprecating.
Yes.
I'm very proud of my contributions as well, but it definitely helps when you know that you have the artists who are going to pick up the slack and
Mhm.
just run with the stories. And I love it. Like I said, Chris kind of just created this gradual softening of the Manticore that was perfect for the story, not something I put in the script. And that's where the magic of collaboration happens.
Yes. I'm kind of going off the cuff. Let me just try to say this real quickly, but because I think there was one scene in Manticore where there's 2 panels of the Manticore's face, and I had to look twice where it's like, I mean, I thought it was like the same shot, but you could see this sinister grin, but it starts softening a little bit in the second panel. I, it's just great. I just love it. So yeah. Okay. Sorry. So let me start wrapping this up, Eric. Okay. Now, actually, let me ask you this. Um, now this is a fun question,
Sure.
or actually before I get to the fun questions, I flipped through No Angels Trade. I saw the last page. It said end of book 1. Eric, I'm sorry, I have to ask this question. When are we going to get a follow-up series of No Angel?
I would love to do a follow-up series of No Angel. I think Adrienne is on the same page. It is really, it's in the publisher's hands right now, right?
Oh,
That
okay.
the ball is in Black Mask's court as to whether we do a second volume.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a possibility of that happening, especially considering my sister's recent success with the Orville.
Yes.
So I think that there's definitely a possibility, but I can't really nail down a date or a time or give you any definitive answer more than the will is there. We're just waiting for the publisher to give us the go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. No, but no, okay, that sounds good. Okay. How fun was it going back to conventions this year?
It is. It has been a fantastic experience. It's good to see my friends, to see all of my colleagues, to remember why I really love comic books. And it's been phenomenal. I do want to say I came back from C2E2. I wasn't as careful as I should have been with my masking, and I came back from C2E2 with COVID. So I am very happy to see that conventions like Emerald City and New York Comic Con are still mandating that people wear masks at the show. Because we may say that the pandemic is over, but the threat of COVID is still there. And I felt awful for 10 days. Thankfully, I'm on the mend. I'm okay. I don't have any of the long COVID symptoms. So, I'm kind of blessed in that regard. But while I'm getting serious on a fun question, conventions have been fantastic, Jason. I am very happy to be back. I'm looking forward to being at New York Comic Con, where I will have copies of Manticore as well as Ninja Kaidan numbers 1 and 2 and possibly 3. And Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists and Blacksmith. So I hope people who are coming to New York Comic Con will come see me at Artist Alley Table G15.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Besides New York Comic Con, any other conventions for the rest of the year?
That will be my last convention of the year. I am hoping with Emerald City and C2E2 moving back to the spring in 2023, I'm hoping to be at both of those shows. I believe they are in March and April respectively. Always a great time. Everyone should come out to Seattle in the spring after we've gotten through our long 5-month period of no sun at all. It'll be beautiful in the spring and warming up, and we can eat wonderful food.
All right. Any closing words to our listeners?
I just want to thank everyone who's checked out my book so far, and thank you very much for hosting me now for the 3rd time. It's always a pleasure to talk comics with you, Jason. You know, I'm a fan of the show. I'm a friend of the show, and I will come back anytime you'll have me.
Eric, oh, thank you. All right, no, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, Eric, you know, again, you know, mahalo. Thank you for your time. You know, thank you for coming back on the show. Thank you very much. And I have to say thank you again. Thank you very much for sending me the incredible care package. Thank you very much. That was very generous. Thank you. And again, thank you for the Ninja Kaidan review copies. Thank you very much. I wish you all the success at Ninja Kaidan and Manticore. And I hope that when you go to New York Comic Con that you're going to be that you're going to be okay, that you know and stuff like that. So yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out Ninja Kaidan. Issue 3 will be out in shops on September 28th. Issue 4 will be out on October 26th. Now, if your shop does not carry this title, please ask them to order and pre-order the series. I'm being honest, you know, this is a sleeper hit comic readers should pick up. The story is great, the art is great, it's very good. And also to Manticore, you know, I love this European style book. It's very good. I emailed Eric saying I love the pacing of the story. I love the artwork, and the colors are fantastic. And I just love the cinnamon color of the Manticore. It's a nice contrast. It's really nice. It very is. And you know, again, you know, so please check out, you know, Ninja Kaidan and Manticore. And also too, Manticore is available on Eric's website, ericpalicki.com. And if you are going to New York Comic Con, you will have Manticore, you will have the first 2 issues of Ninja Kaidan and Manticore as well. And please stop by his table. So please check out his table. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And Eric, I just got to say this. Thank you very much for being a fan of the show. Thank you for supporting our show. Thank you very much. If you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Aloha.